Hey there, everyone. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm as good as I possibly can be from after watching what I watched. It makes me sad and bored. It makes me question life.
Bunny Dracula.
No, Bunnicula.
You know,
There's no dragon there.
you know, the funny part of this is that when I first saw the title, Bunnicula, I thought it was going to be Bunny Caligula. Now, that would have made for a much more interesting show, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I was walking in the lab late one night when my eyes emerged from a eerie sight. Stuck in the slab began your eyes, and suddenly, to eyes of delight, they did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It got all in a flash. It did the monster mash. The master bedroom never recognized me.
Anyway,
You know,
context.
yeah.
Right then. So,
Give
before
it
we
to us.
yes, before we start discussing this show proper, I feel like it is necessary, nay, imperative, that we formulate and create a proper context to define the role that this show has in current modern day cartoon era, so to speak. For that purpose, I took the liberty of devising and writing an introduction for all this
Of
podcast.
course.
Yes, it's a lengthy for the introduction too, and it basically summarizes the last 20 years of mainstream cable network American produced cartoons.
Well, good thing you didn't put too much thought into it.
In terms of accessibility, distribution, writing, and overall quality, cartoons have come a long way in the last few years. More specifically, they've come a long way since what they used to be in the previous decade. And we all know what they used to be, right, WhyBoy?
Yes, I know. Uh, a few years back, cartoons were famous for just being like easy cash grabs that any sort of studio could have pumped out. It was sad. It's the reason why I started Cartoon Corner to begin with.
Yes. But let's focus specifically on shows from big time cable networks that pretty much defined our generation of children entertainment, such as Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, and Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
Speaking in a general sense, the shows broadcast in animation pillar-stone channels such as Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and the Disney Channel, with a few noticeable exceptions, have pretty much defined the first 10 years of the millennium to be the second worst 10 years for the medium since the 1970s. The era of relentless Scooby-Doo ripoffs and the cast of Gilligan's Island turning up in outer space, to give you a context.
Yes.
That's the 70s in a nutshell. Josie and the Pussycats in outer space. Riveting stuff.
Ye- yep.
Yep. We had...
Magical times.
Yes, magical times indeed. Almost killed the medium single-handedly. In the previous decade, we had a barrage of products of dubious quality and tons of bodily humor getting dished out left and right, slowly killing the industry from the inside. Terribly misguided attempts at being the second coming of either South Park or, even worse, Family Guy stank up the very idea of adult-based animation to the point that it's struggling with this particular stigma to this very day. Just check out the entirety of Adult Swim's pamphlet up until Rick and Morty came out. That should prove my point.
Yep.
And children's cartoon became almost literally in fact, all about farting and being gross for gross's sake. I am looking at you, Flapjack and company. Just
I remember that show so much. That was an ugly-looking show.
And to think it's the show that springboarded the career of one Pendleton Ward. Which makes sense if you remember how the first season of Adventure Time actually was. Not good at all, if you ask me. Things eventually changed for the better in 2010. While adult cartoons are still relatively trying to get back their groove with series like Bob's Burgers, Archer, and the previously mentioned Rick and Morty, setting the bar for their peers, children's cartoons from the major networks have been consistently and increasingly pushing the boundaries of episodic narratives, thought-provoking themes, and inspired writing that can be enjoyed on multiple levels by kids, their parents, and even their older siblings at times. It all ideally began with the success of shows like CN's longest-running, culturally defining juggernaut, Adventure Time. And also that one pastel-colored horse reboot that took the world by storm, changing certain perceptions and igniting certain others. But that's a rabbit hole in its own right.
Yeah.
5 years later, today, the current state of the American cartoon scene has been shaped in the image of these two series, effectively promoting more challenging stories, starring well-written characters that could be both entertaining and emotionally fulfilling at any given time. Such as Steven Universe, the recently concluded Gravity Falls, We Bare Bears, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Harvey Biggs, and Wonder Over Yonder, to name a few. It's extremely fair to say that without the success of Adventure Time, which provided a starting point for a lot of talented new animators, such as the guy who made Over the Garden Walls, and Rebecca Sugar, which made the Steven Universe, and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which redefined the idea of gender-oriented demographics, it would have been much, much harder for the above-mentioned titles to see the light of day. I mean, I highly doubt that Wonder Over Yonder would have turned out to be the way it turned out to be in Season 2, even with a name like Craig McCracken attached to it, if previous examples of successful shows that dare to push certain boundaries had not provide an example of good quality series being able to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to convey here. In that regard, the very idea of a Cartoon Network IP effectively becoming a progressive LGBT icon is mesmerizing in its own right, and I am referring to Steven Universe here in case it wasn't obvious. Although, and here comes the darker aspect of this, although if another lesson can be taken specifically from MLP FIM, or indeed the current trends in Hollywood, is that reboots of classic franchises are money.
Yeah.
Because nostalgia is simply that easily exploitable. Hence, a lot of beloved series our generation grew up with are about to come back in our life. Some deservingly, Samurai Jack, which was never concluded, so yes. Some unnecessarily, the Powerpuff Girls, that's highly unnecessary, and some, in my opinion, mind-blowingly. And on that note, the new DuckTales better have the classic theme song, or else!
I think it'd be pretty stupid not to have any form of the DuckTales theme song in there. Like, that's just easy money for them to place it in there.
Yep. Well, it's Disney. You never know what... Sometimes they make obvious decisions, some other times they refuse to make
obvious decisions.
No, they refuse to make any use of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. That's my personal beef with the Mouse Company. You have Oswald!
Oswald is like dozens of years ago. Oswald hasn't been around at all. Why are you bummed about that?
Because it's the chance of a lifetime to reboot this character and make him known. And make... I mean, effectively Mickey Mouse older brother. Why hasn't he not appeared in the new Mickey Mouse series? Which is great, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the point. In these interesting times of both original new properties and forcibly revived old ones that fans actually cared about and wanted to see more of, the very existence of a show like Bunnicula both befuddles and bemuses me.
Was Bunnicula an old property? Because I've
Well-
only just heard about it this year.
Then, well, if you let me continue. Based off...
Sorry.
Yes. Based... Don't breathe. Based off a children's book series by the same name written by James Howe in between 1979 and 2004, about a vampire rabbit that sucks the life, in quotation marks, out of vegetables, basically imaging Count Dracula, but instead it's a bunny. This cartoon ends up proving without any lingering doubts that everything that ever existed or will ever exist can and will be rebooted at some point in history, whether there was demand for it or not. Let's explore this notion in more depth. And that was my introduction.
Good introduction.
Why, thank you.
Held my breath for that.
Thank you. I put effort in what I write. I've been writing since 2009. In a critical sense, I've been writing. Right
Very
then,
nice.
so Bunnicula. What's more interesting about this show, as I established right now with my brilliant introduction, it's its background more than its actual, existence, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, as I said, it was the product of it was based off this children's book series written in between 79 and 2004. And honestly, even for the times, the this premise of basically taking Dracula and adding Bunny to it and becomes Bunnicula, if it sounds gimmicky and trite in any way to you, that's because it is. It is extremely gimmicky and trite. But to be fair, it was a product of its times. I mean, I do believe that the 70s was pretty much where the notion of taking once feared monsters of our imagination, such as Dracula and the Frankenstein monster and the werewolf, and basically ridiculing them, spoofing them, and making parodies of them to make them as child-friendly as possible, pretty much reached its peak in 79. So Bunnicula comes out at the right time. 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And it actually would have been a pretty successful cartoon, in my opinion, in the 80s, when we had such classics as Count Dracula, and also Dingbat, the vampire dog. Remember Dingbat from the Heathcliff cartoon? If you
I
don't,
wasn't alive around there.
well, if you don't, I don't blame you. It's not worth remembering at all. But it existed, vampire dog, because vampire bunny, vampire duck, vampire dog, why the hell not? And there was actually an animated special of Bunnicula made in the 80s, which I am yet to watch at this point in time. We could watch it and make a review of it, if we wanted to, if we can find it anywhere, but remain assured this special exists, and after that, nothing else about Bunnicula aside from the novels. So from what I hear, Cartoon Network has been sitting around with the rights, with the adapting rights of Bunnicula for a long while. Clearly they had no idea what to do with it, and this really puts this new show into context, because this show pretty much came out with little to no advertising from CN's part, and it definitely feels like the kind of show that they put together because they felt they had to, because they had the rights for the books, so we might as well do something with it. But it's clear from the execution standpoint that no one had any trust in this project to begin with.
Yeah, it feels a lot like an obligation sort of project, with the three characters, Bunnicula being that cute, like Stitch voice sort of cute character. It's like, look at me!
I'm adorable. Look, I'm adorable.
Yeah, then we have the pissy cat who's like, oh, I don't like Bunnicula. I'm gonna make him like not have his mishaps. And the big
Uh,
dumb dog.
Well, the characterization of Chester the cat is a bit inconsistent because one episode is tolerating Bunnicula, is all like, oh hi Bunnicula, how you doing? And another episode is like, he's a menace to society, he needs to be stopped. He's evil and he attracts supernatural evils to the house. And by the way, speaking of trite, gimmicky, and just tired in all meanings of the word, this show presents one of my now most personally despised tropes in cartoons or indeed children's programming to begin with. The trope of the pet owner that remains blissfully, insultingly oblivious about everything that their pets are doing.
Yes, that is just so irritating. Because I think it'd probably be even funnier if the pet owner actually knew. Sometimes.
Honestly, I would expect a series like Bunnicula to come out in 2016 to present a twist on the classic trope that I just mentioned, in which maybe at some point the owner gets to understand what's going on and gets to get into the action, and maybe something else happens, but maybe to evolve into an episodic narrative and overarching story. But honestly, call me cynical, but I don't see this show ever coming to the point. Now, at this point in time, we have like 7 episodes of the show out, so it's too early to say that, but from what we've seen, there is nothing really that's worth keeping us entertained and watching the show, because everything else that's been presented in the shop until this point is underwhelming.
Yeah. I think we may be expecting a little bit too much, expecting like Steven Universe quality, sort of like with
Well-
the episodic narrative, that sort of stuff. Like, I would never expect like episodic narrative from Bunnicula of anything. I would
Well-
expect more like just funny episodes and all that.
Well, here's the thing. There are 2 aspects of the show that you need to consider. Number one, it's a CN show that comes out in this particular period of time. Effectively, this show feels like it should be, coming out last decade when there was creativity bankruptcy all around, and this feels like the kind of show that will be broadcast on 2004 era Disney Channel, alongside shows like Mr. Whiskers.
Yeah, Branding Mr. Whiskers.
Yes, remember
yeah.
the one. I think it's more or less on that level of
Yeah.
writing. So
Yeah, more like slapstick, stupid, goofy voices and all that sort of stuff.
yes, they were everywhere last decade, and they did not have any depth. With that said, Bunnicula doesn't really do a good job in being a gag-based show in its own right. I see the potential. I like the design of the characters. Aesthetically, it's relatively pleasing. The animation is another discourse altogether. We'll get to that. But the main problem of the show is Chester the cat.
I find the whole show is the problem.
Yes,
because
but
the whole interaction between all 3 of the characters is just like standard stock, sort of like big fat one, skinny like angry one, and then the cute little one. And that's just it.
Chester the cat is not angry, but he's more neurotic and always paranoid
Yeah.
about whatever Bunnicula is doing. But that's, to be fair, the premise of the books themselves. But that's the problem. You see, the story of the books were perfectly serviceable for children's books of their own time period, but in 2006 we expect far more from children animated shows coming out from these major networks. We have come to expect more, which is an extremely good thing. We expect a level of entertainment that's for, well, if not for all ages, at least it manages to be intelligent while also being entertaining for the specific demographic. But considering everything that we know about the show from a background standpoint, it's fair to say this is exactly what we can expect from a Y7 demographic cartoon that came out with little to no advertisement, and nobody had any trust in the project to begin with. So
Yeah.
it could be much worse. But then again, now it's just memorable. Honestly, even the name itself, Bunnicula, you might want to watch it because what the hell is a Bunnicula, right? You're
Yeah.
curious about that, but other than that, it doesn't really go far beyond the premise of its own title.
Yeah, that's the only reason why me and my partner Nero watched it. We just thought like Bunnicula, that sounds adorable. Let's watch that. It's like, oh no, it's not adorable at all.
Okay, in the wise
And that
word.
thing needs to die.
Okay, in the wise, well, I don't think it needs to die, but you can just ignore it and live your life. I mean, you don't need. It really does not deserve to be angry towards it. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just there.
I'm not
So
saying
to
it needs to die because it's bad. I'm just saying it needs to die because no, it just needs to go away. It needs to just fade
honestly,
with time.
I'll be extremely surprised if it survives season 1. I'll be very surprised if it survives its first season. I doubt it will. Clearly, Cartoon Network doesn't care about it, so why should we?
Yeah, very true.
Now, in the wise words of Chester the Cat, probably the only sensible and sensical thing he's ever said to Bunnicula, you are not cute at all. Is not.
No, not
Is
really.
not. Is not. Is honestly, even with this incomprehensible gibberish that sometimes forms an actual word. Like, sometimes there is an English
Yeah.
word amidst all the gibberish that you can understand.
Yeah,
But
totally
it's-
inconsistent on that front.
yes, it's basically Slimer, 2016 Slimer. But you know what? Even in spite of that, he is not the most annoying character in the show. Chester the Cat is. And here's why. He never, ever, 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 ever shuts up.
Yep, he's a complainer.
Well, not worse than a complainer. He's an exposition mouthpiece. The worst kind of exposition mouthpiece. The kind of exposition mouthpiece that pretty much describes to you, points out loud, what's going on at the very specific moment. Like, there is a physical gag, maybe, or something happens, and Chester the Cat is there to describe it to the dumb audience, apparently. That's the kind of terrible, trite, terrible, condescending writing that one would think we left behind in the 80s, but apparently not.
Yes. But sadly, it still hasn't gone away. Like, it's very sort of different programming here in Canada. Like, I have Teletoon, YTV, and all that. And for early sort of
Dude.
shows in the morning.
Dude,
Yeah.
don't get me started on Canadian flesh cartoons from the 2000s.
No,
They are the absolute worst thing ever spout out by humanity's hairy bottom. They want me make. Oh, Canada, you make awful cartoons. You know?
thank you for that.
honestly, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is one of your only redeeming qualities because it's actually made in a Canadian cartoon
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah,
And
DHX Media.
Yes. And even though the flash animation is really good in that show, it's still not as good as what the Disney Animation Studios dishes out on a daily basis. Well, to be fair, they also have a much bigger budget. And if you see the second season of Wonder Over Yonder, it's so outstandingly gorgeous. I hear that 2 episodes of Wonder Over Yonder cost more than the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to make.
Whoa.
Impressive. Speaking of flash animation, let's talk about the flash animation displayed in Bunnicula. In a word, cheap.
In a word for me, boring. Boring and cheap.
Well, it's still miles above the kind of flash animation quality we can expect from the 2000s in Canada. It's still much better than that, but it's clear that this cartoon does not have a proper budget, and the animators can only do so much to use the tools that they have at their disposal. But it's clear they don't have much of a motivation to work on, because there is nothing in the show that's particularly visually memorable or particularly creative, again, from a visual standpoint. The gags are, well, old. In a word, old. They would have been old at the times of Billy and Mandy, more on that later. And the humor is also very much toned down because, again, it's a Y7 demographic, so they cannot exactly go on with the same type of jokes you see in Steven Universe, for example. Mm-hmm. Does Steven Universe have the same demographic, the same rating? I don't think so.
I have no idea. I would guess it's around the same sort of demographic that would put it up there for.
Well, honestly, if they have the same rating, Bunnicula has even less excuses to be so patronizing to its audience. So.
I know, but at the same time, Steven Universe and Bunnicula are like two different sort of animals. Like with Steven Universe doing the narrative sort of stuff, Bunnicula is just the episodic sort of stuff. So I think we should really be more like rating Bunnicula on what it actually is rather than what it could have been.
You know what other show has an episodic formula but it still manages to be really funny and entertaining? The Amazing World of Gumball.
Oh, very true.
So we can compare it to that, and how it feels to live up to that, for example.
Yes, but, that's a much better comparison.
So at this point in time, you all might be wondering why we are wasting our time to discuss a cartoon that basically has no appeal to us whatsoever. Well, there is a reason for that, and that reason is who he is actually working on this show. Maxwell Atoms is working on this show. That's possibly the most disappointing aspect of this cartoon in its entirety.
Yeah. God.
Now, for those who don't know and for those who don't remember, Maxwell Atoms is famous most notably for creating a beloved Cartoon Network classic, which is The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. So they have the creator of Billy and Mandy working on an adaptation of a classic literature children's book, Bunnicula. I was already thinking of the possibilities. I mean, personally speaking, I am not the biggest fan of his work. I am not the biggest fan of Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. I feel like it's the kind of show that basically runs out of steam as soon as the novelty of its premise stops being a novelty. And also the premise alone, I am also very not convinced about the premise alone, because remembering the pilot of the show, it feels like it's basically rehashing a certain sketch from Animaniacs that was supposed to be a parody of The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman. Remember that episode of Animaniacs in which the trio Warner Bros. Basically drive the Grim Reaper insane?
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing with Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, except it's extended to an entire series. But one thing that I can appreciate about Billy and Mandy is that it was pushing boundaries for children's cartoons in terms of dark humor or use of dark humor in a time and period in which Cartoon Network wouldn't take many risks. So that's something that's inspiring in its own right. I don't think it has aged well at all compared to what we see right now. But still, from Maxwell Atoms, you expect a little bit more than whatever Bunnicula turned out to be. But like I said, it's only been 7 episodes of the show up until now, but each episode is being more interchangeable with one another than the next. More forgettable and more... Essentially, it feels like... here's the better way to describe Bunnicula as a show. It's basically taking all the gags, all the humor you saw already in Billy and Mandy, sometimes even an episode's entire premise and execution, like that one with the magic flute or instrument that summons zombies.
That was an episode of Billy and Mandy. I remember that.
Which is almost identical to the one episode in which zombies are summoned by magical cookies.
Yeah.
So basically, it's recycling everything is done in Billy and Mandy, except it's toned down and watered down because of the Y7 rating.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a worse and less inspired version of Billy and Mandy.
Yeah. And that isn't just really disappointing. Because say what you want about Billy and Mindy, at least it had some
Oh,
teeth
I
to it to
have,
show.
and I will.
Yeah.
I have, and I will say what I want about
Yeah.
Billy and Mandy.
I'm just basically just saying Billy and Mindy at least had some teeth to it that could actually show some stuff that was not commonplace for a lot of children's cartoons to show at the time.
Well, sure. Mandy eventually became insufferable, and Billy also became insufferable in its own
Yeah.
right. And Grimm just feels like all his entire character is reacting to the shenanigans of Billy or either Billy or Mandy,
Yeah.
and nothing more than that. And
Just a narrative punching bag, so to
yes,
say.
in a sense, we have that reprised in the dynamic between these three characters in Bunnicula, except, like I said, watered down and extremely on the "you've seen this before" side, with Chester the cat being the straight man, not a really funny one either. Bunnicula being Mandy fused with Billy, and the big dog being old Billy.
Yeah.
Except without maliciousness. He's just dumb, traditionally dumb. Innocent dumb, so to speak. Nothing really wrong about him. Billy was dumb and psychotic.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Big one. But it just creates a whole sort of like really dull atmosphere around the whole entire show because we've seen these three characters before. We've seen these archetypes before played out in dozens of other cartoons. And now they're just here again.
And it lacks a unique spin to it that makes it distinguishable from the trite from which it came from. So that's Bunnicula in a nutshell. We don't particularly like it. But it's especially disappointing because the guy responsible for Billy and Mandy, which was many people's childhood at this point, is working on it. And this is his first show in forever, basically. Have you heard of whatever Maxwell Atoms has been doing after Billy and Mandy? I haven't. So this is effectively his first thing in a long while, and it's freaking Bunnicula. That's all kinds of disappointing and demoralizing.
It probably could just be an easy paycheck for him. Like, from a writer's perspective, these episodes would be so simple to write, especially if they're like based off of old Billy and Mandy cartoons.
From what I've seen in the credits for each episode, 2 people write these episodes.
Yeah, so that easy.
Okay, so this show has just started and already is on SpongeBob SquarePants level of inspired. SpongeBob Now, that is.
Yeah, SpongeBob. No. Earlier episodes are good. Later episodes, no.
Well, so I guess that's all we have to say about Bunnicula.
Yeah, don't watch it.
It's a show. It's a weird anomaly that comes out in a period of time in which such shows with such premises are not welcome anymore. They would have been welcome 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. But today we simply demand better from our entertainment. At least, family entertainment, at least for as far as cartoons go. Cartoons of a very specific ilk, too.
Yeah.
So, you know what, Bunnicula, it's still better than Teen Titans Go, at least.
Yeah, Bunnicula is just that sort of inoffensive sort of bad. It's just going to be this thing that you watch like, oh, that's something, and then it just flows by, it fades away from your memory, and you won't really remember it.
But you know what? But you know what? At least, Teen Titans Go might be a really terribly misguided attempt at a parody. But at the very least, its existence makes some resemblance of sense. After all, Teen Titans has a strong fan base. Who cares about Bunnicula to begin with? That's what confuses me. Was there ever a demand for Bunnicula? Was there ever someone interested at all. Was there ever a forum online that says, "Oh man, I wish they made a Bunnicula cartoon"? I remember that one animated special from the 80s that only I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it could just be the exact opposite. You know, nobody's heard of it. It's like, oh, Bunnicula, that's an interesting name. Let me go see it now. It could just be the opposite effect. Like, it's such a weird premise in the midst of everything.
You know what?
But
If the intent was to inspire people to buy the books, it's not working because
no.
honestly, this show does not have any bite to it to inspire people to do anything with their lives.
Yeah.
Especially not buy the books. I would be, I am almost tempted to buy the book, the first one at least, to see what the fuss is all about, maybe if it was any better.
Well, looks like the show accomplished its goal.
But maybe I'm going to read it live, on a live show, because why not?
Yeah, try.
So, are there any positives in this show that we can find? Any positives at all that we can leave this podcast with on an high note?
For me, there wasn't really much of a positive because I didn't really give any sort of like reaction other than, well, that was mildly cute.
You know,
But I can say I do like Bunnicula's design a little bit. It is a cutish design.
I think it's extremely cute, that scene in which you see Bunnicula listening to death metal music with headphones. That's
Yeah.
That's adorable. That's possibly my favorite scene in the entire show, and unfortunately, that's saying something.
Yeah.
How lazy is the opening title sequence? I mean, it's just the most generic, spoopy music. It's,
Oh, I don't even remember the opening music.
Compared to the opening to Sonic Boom, it's DuckTales.
Yeah, I can remember at least Sonic Boom when he was like, oh.
Sonic, there is so much about Sonic Boom that is so utterly wrong, and yet I cannot stop watching it because at the end of the day, Sonic Boom is merely an okay show, but it has its, high note moments every once in a while. Let's see if Bunnicula can accomplish at least a level of okayness that Sonic Boom was able to accomplish, because right now, Sonic Boom is up here, and Bunnicula is down here.
Yeah. I don't really see Bunnicula getting any better. I honestly don't, because it's just like you say, they don't really care for it that much. They haven't advertised it at all. They're just going to basically post it, give everyone their money, and just going to let it fade away, just to fill up a time slot.
I guess, I guess they really wanted to do something with it, but they had no idea what. So this is the best we can expect from that particular turn of events, which is a show that's not bad. I kind of wish it was bad, because if it were to be insanely bad, like insultingly bad, like Teen Titans Go, then it would have made itself, a topic of an argument. It would have been interesting in some regards to talk about. But as it stands, it's just there.
Yeah, it's meh.
It's meh. It's meh. Well then, with that said, I think we're done with Caligula Bunny. I wish so bad this was Rabbit Caligula. How cool would that have been?
God.
Imagine an entire show in which people get raped by a bunny.
Well, I don't think that would get a Y7 rating.
Well, that is the next Adult Swim property. Oh my gosh. Oh, they're going to cancel Rick and Morty for the Bunny Caligula show.
I'd be okay with that. No, I wouldn't.
Oh, you were kidding.
Yes, of course I was kidding. Jeez.
For a second, thank God, I was worried for a second.
First off, who would make a bunny rape show? Seriously.
We're talking about the network Adult Swim that made Metalocalypse and that satanic dog show.
Mr. Pickles.
Yeah, I think they would. Honestly, I think they would. No problem.
Yeah, it could be there, but I think they already met the rape quota with Mr. Pickles.
Oh god. I think there is even worse than Mr. Pickles in there. Anyway, these were our opinions on Bunnicula and the current state of the animation industry, well, as far as specifically animated series are concerned. Next time, we discuss something else. Possibly more interesting, although I probably will not be able to write such a good introduction as I have for this podcast, which
Yes, it
feels...
was
which
amazing
feels-
introduction, glorious introduction,
Yes.
godlike introduction. Yes,
Well,
give
thank-
yourself more compliments.
Continue. Come on. Well, it feels was a bit wasted for this review, but no. So anyway, so when we get to review the reboot of DuckTales, the introduction is going to be... So remember what we talked about in the Bunnicula podcast? Okay, now let's talk about DuckTales.
Well, at least we'll be able to get to our point faster.
Right, so this has been Madhog Master
And
of
this has
introductions.
And this has been WhyBoy of just standing here holding his breath while he introduces.
Alright, so next up we are discussing Zootopia. We might as well actually do this into one old big mega podcast, because since we're at it.
Okay, sounds good.
Now, okay, from the visceral torture that was Bunnicula, we passed to a new phenomenon that's taking the world by storm, if the money it's making is an indication to that, and which is apparently overshadowing Frozen in terms of mega success, which is something that I wasn't expecting to say this earlier on, and it's only been 2 years from Frozen.
Yeah.
Zootopia is the film that proves without a shadow of a doubt that furries are now mainstream.
Yeah.
You being a furry yourself can attest to that.
Yep, I can.
Can you also confirm these horrible horror stories that I keep hearing about furry orgies during cinematic premieres of Zootopia?
Oh yes, the one in Ohio, that was totally real. No one would be able to stop that. Of course it was fake. It was on a fake news website. Anyone with a Google search engine could find that out.
Well, to be fair, I did not care enough to search for it.
Like, seriously. Ugh.
Oh, classy. Classy material. So, at this point in time, both me and WhyBoy have released our own personal reviews of Zootopia. Did you like it, by the way?
Yes, I liked it. Did you
I
like
liked it immensely, yes. Immensely. I actually saw this film before its actual United States release in March the 3rd. It was actually released in Italy in Alpha Way in February.
Yeah.
The 18th of February, which gave me a good head start for writing my review before other reviews came out. And that was good. And basically in my reviews, the short story is that I think it's the best Walt Disney Animation Studios they ever produced since Wreck-It Ralph, which is another film that I love immensely. And basically I spent the entirety of it praising this film to be a Orwellian allegory, basically. Mm-hmm. An Orwellian allegory about society and the prejudice that engulfs it. I end up stating that our prejudiced society is both the cause and effect of itself, that it's the product of a constantly repeating vicious cycle throughout history in which those with powers use prejudice to keep themselves in a position of power, and pitting the majority versus the minorities, and having the minorities react in a certain way because of how much they are mistreated, leading those in power to fuel their self-righteousness and producing even more prejudice, which is more or less what the villain of the story was all about, and I think it's absolutely brilliant in that regard. The great thing about Zootopia is that it's massive deconstruction to the very core, from the biggest angles to the smallest, most intimate portions of it, about every single aspect of prejudice, from classism, elitarianism, social separation, ghettization, plain old racism, gender inequality, political scare tactics, the use of the media against specific minorities. Everything is covered in this film. And I, honestly, a Disney family film, quote unquote, it's not a family film at all. I mean, it presents itself colorful and animated and beautiful to look at, and fantastic fun characters. But at the end of it, thematically speaking, this is the farthest from the classic family-friendly Disney formula has ever been. And honestly, it's great for it, but it's still baffling for me to see such an openly anti-establishment mannerism from the Mouse Company of all places.
Yeah.
Some would say hypocritical, but thankfully this is about prejudice specifically. It's not about...
It's not about the establishment.
No. You see. Prejudice is the establishment. That's what the film establishes very brilliantly. It's about prejudice on a broader and more intimate sense. It's not about Disney oppressing YouTubers, or rather, because that would be a bit hypocritical.
I don't think any movie would ever cover that.
No, they won't. But honestly, I'm actually glad that this film exists for all these reasons. It's great because it takes risks, and it delivers splendidly, and it's lambasting, no holds barred, and it doesn't pull any punches, I should say. In fact, I would argue that the second half of this film, after the inadvertent racist press conference, in which it changes the entire perspective of the film. It changes the tone of the film. That's the most gut-punching moment of the film. Anyway, do you want to say something?
Well, you kind of said a lot about the prejudice and all that sort of stuff.
Well, okay,
I'm trying to say my thing.
Yeah, yes, do that.
From my review of it, I did think it was a great movie. I enjoyed it a lot. The characters were fun. I loved the world of it. I love the mechanics of the world and like how everything like tinkered together to make all these sort of different sized animals come together. And I love the prejudice aspect of it because it was intelligent. It didn't just have it like the weak, small prey being oppressed by the big predators, and that was just it, because that would have been easy.
It's there though.
Yeah.
Well, it's also there though. It's one of the many aspects.
Yeah, of course. But they do the flip side of the coin, showing how predators are also so hated as well for like the unfair reasons as well. Showing both sides and showing how much more dimension to the theming of the whole movie.
Yes,
I thought it was very clever of it.
The entire aspect of prejudice and how society basically functions is founded on prejudice, and it continues to be founded in prejudice. And we all have prejudices in our own rights, but it's up to us to find the strength to overcome them. They won't go away magically. Not even the Disney ending of this film is about, a clean-cut finale. I mean, it leaves us with a message of hope, but we also need to put an effort in order to overcome prejudice, which is, again, a big part of society, because even though when it does not evolve into playing out racism and hatred, we still all of us, we have prejudices. We have expectations towards certain types of people and certain social groups and certain races. We don't do it out of malice necessarily, but we had them. Why? Because we're all part of the cogs of the drag that is society. Mm-hmm. And the fact there is a literal drag involved in this film later on, and I think that's all part of the metaphor there. So, what I want to do with us is we did our reviews of this film, and they were all spoiler free basically.
Yeah,
am I right to
yeah.
assume that?
I only spoiled like one part of the movie because I wanted to go into more detail about that, but I wanted to as broad terms as possible.
Yes, I managed to write an exhaustive, comprehensive review of the film without actually ever talking about the plot itself. I'm proud of that. But anyway, what I want to do with us is actually going for a spoiler-tastic review of Zootopia. Like, no holds barred. Let's deconstruct and talk about the film, every aspect of it, and let's talk about plot points. And by this point in time, I'm assuming everyone and their mothers and their dogs' mothers and their dogs' cats' mothers have seen this film. Again, the numbers are suggestive of that. So, let's talk about Zootopia.
What would you like to talk about first, then?
The sloths.
No, yeah, there's lots to talk about.
No, I want to talk about the sloths.
No, I don't want to talk about the fucking sloths.
But why?
Their joke was completely ruined before the movie even came out.
Well, that's only if you saw the trailer, which I did not, and therefore I found that scene to be the funniest in the entire film. Absolutely hilarious. I laughed my ears out. It's just it's ruffling on the floor.
I'm sure it would have been the funniest scene for those. But I just want to say that Disney was so stupid with that trailer because they literally just cut a scene out of the movie and just packaged that as the trailer.
Well, I only seen the first trailer, and that's usually where I stop because I don't need anything more. And that's actually a good politics to movie going. Do not get to watch many trailers of the same film. Just watch one, possibly the first one.
Yeah.
Especially if you know beforehand that the trailer you're seeing is actually literally a clip from the film, which sometimes is actually told beforehand. Anyway, specifically my absolutely favorite part of that scene, the DMV slot scene, which, by the way, great satirical job at DMVs and basically every public services ever. Mm-hmm. So they used the specific example of DMVs, but honestly, to me, it could have been the postal service, could have been banks, could have been any public service whatsoever. The sloths are a perfect satire of that. And, you know, the funniest moment to me, specifically in that scene, is when Nick does the joke about the camel, and then there is the reaction of the sloth, which is slowly getting the joke and then morphing his face into it was perfectly timed. It was amazing. It's so good. And then there is and you know what my least favorite of the scene of the film is?
What's that?
Nudist Club.
The Nudist Club did not really make any sense. Like, me and my buddy Nero both had the same sort of thing. Like, the animals don't have any genitals at all. They're like really blocked. You see the elephant bend down and show everything. It's like, yep, that's a smooth surface.
I think well, first of all, it's technically a Disney family movie. Technically, very technically. Second of all, they don't really need to do that. I mean,
they were in a nudist colony, though.
It's clear that Disney is making fun of furries with that scene. Yeah. Or either that or is creating furries, whichever works better. Honestly, I see this meme in which the furry Robin Hood from the classic Robin Hood Disney film passing the torch to the main characters of Zootopia because, figuratively speaking, this is the new Robin Hood in terms of creating a new generation of furries.
Yeah, I can see that sort of thing.
And speaking of which, have you noticed that the mayor of Zootopia is basically King Richard Lionheart from Robin Hood? He's the same design. He's basically the same character. Well, reassigned to a role of a much sleazier politician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
In
can
fact,
see
I
that.
think it was called Mayor Lionheart too.
I'm trying to remember. I believe that was his name. It
Well,
was just sort of
it's
one of
a
the things. Yeah.
it's a nice reference either way.
Yep.
Okay, so the villain. Let's talk about the villain because I think it's one of the most interesting things to talk about that you cannot talk about openly in a spoiler-free review.
Yeah. That just sort of connects to what I didn't really like about the movie. I just felt the whole mystery aspect felt a little bit weak to me. Like I immediately knew who the villain was in this prejudiced movie.
Yes, I did. Well, here's the thing. I did know that as well, but unlike other films in which you're like, oh, what a shock. That guy or that gal is the villain. I would have never seen that coming. In the specific case of this villain, I knew it was coming, and I was excited about it because in my brain, I was connecting all the dots with the overarching theme of the story. And from a thematic standpoint, the villain of the story makes so much sense, it's actually scary.
Yeah, I can see that. I was just more like thinking of the narrative standpoint. I didn't get all like the points in the mystery sort of thing. Like the whole Night Howlers things. Like I mentioned that this in my review, and a few comments have already told me like what Disney was really intending on doing and how it really came across for me. Basically, we have in the scene where Nick and Judy go off to the Rainforest District to talk with this witness who saw the otter that went missing. And basically, the driver basically tells them, like, oh, I'm really scared of the Night Howlers because the otter was talking about these Night Howlers sort of things. And we get this sort of thing like Night Howlers could be the wolves that go around catching all the savage...
Literally howling.
Yeah, the savage animals, and also the Night Howlers as the actual plants. What I would have really appreciated was, like in the previous sort of scene where Judy stopped this weasel guy catching all these, like I don't... I didn't even really catch what the name of those plants were, if they were Night Howlers or not.
There's
But
a
there was-
Latin name that you can never remember.
Yeah, that sort of pissed me off because that was
Yes,
like
I actually did not understand the connection there. I mean, the weasel stole those radishes, I
yeah.
think, at the beginning of the film. So how did they connect the dots and figure out he's been stealing that
Yes,
Night Howlers?
exactly my
That's
point.
that's the one thing that confuses me about it, honestly. It doesn't ruin the film for me at all, but still, it's
Yeah.
a bit... what
Yeah.
was the intended effect here?
Yeah.
That's...
That's just
Although-
sort of my problem with like
Although you have to like the fact that he was selling a bootlegged version of Disney films.
Yes, that was a really clever joke. I really
And also
liked that.
others that were not yet come out yet, which was
I
which
saw
was also
Frozen 2 on the thing. If I was just in front of me,
yes,
so like,
it was almost
no.
not very subtly, basically advertising future Disney films in that way.
Yeah, that was a clever scene. But just back
Speaking of nods, have you noticed that at the beginning of the film, when Judy is basically on the train to Zootopia or Zootropolis, as it is known in Europe, she has her phone listening to music. One of the available songs in her phone is "Let It Go." Have you noticed that?
No, I did not notice that.
Let it go, let it go.
Yeah,
That's
of
great.
course.
I noticed that immediately the first viewing. I've seen it twice, by the way.
Yeah.
The second time I came to watch it with my sisters because I really wanted to share their experience of the film. They loved it, obviously, and we all shared the joy of experiencing Zootopia together. Yeah, that's a great family moment.
Very nice.
So anyway, yes. What about you? What was your Zootopia experience like?
Basically, I went to Zootopia alone in the IMAX theater, where it was only a... Yeah, no, I didn't really have anyone to go to. I couldn't get my boyfriend to come with me because he was at school and all that. But I hope to go to Zootopia again, because he's really into, like, all the racial politics and all that sort of stuff.
It has everything and more.
Yeah.
And honestly, I dare say the use of the Orwellian allegory, and I say Orwellian allegory because I'm comparing this to Animal Farm
Yeah.
openly. It's actually, to me personally, it produces a much more tough, a much more gut punching effect that a straight up apologue and declaration of intent kind of film would have otherwise done. Because the use of an allegory makes you think about your world through the lenses of the fictional space.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to commune and communicate themes, in my opinion. I like allegories very much. You don't always need them, but when they are well done, like in this case, they are so satisfying to witness. Now, speaking of the villain. The clever thing about the villain, also what I think it's the clever thing about the third act in its own right, and you may disagree with this, is the non-ambiguity of it. Let me explain. At some point in the film, Judy makes the naive and ignorant mistake of saying in a press conference that the reason why the predators started to attack the herbivores, the non-predators, was because of something they had something biological about their DNA, something that has to do with essentially what they are, who they are, how they are born, something to do with their DNA, which I find terrifying and eerie, because that is the same argument that real life public figures use against certain minorities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that racism and prejudice that's used to basically, on one hand, mistreat minorities and misrepresent them, and on the other hand, to basically pull the responsibility of the white man completely out of the picture, because it's not our fault that these minorities are violent and they act back. It's just that it's in their nature. It's not our fault for ghettoizing them and treat them poorly and misrepresenting them in media and basically patronizing them, being condescending about them, completely keep them down because they are the few and we are the many. It's not because of that at all. But what I like about that scene is that Judy did not mean any of that with malicious intent. That was just the product of her ignorance and naivete, something that she has to learn. She learned to outgrow and becoming a much better person in turn. And that's also one of the many aspects about prejudice that this film acknowledges so brilliantly. It's one thing to be malicious and openly persecuting people, but it's another and much more subliminal, much more insidious thing, the casual prejudice that's derived from just being ignorant about what you clearly don't know about. That potentially has the potential to be the most dangerous thing ever. And we saw the consequences of those actions, of those words that were said in the second half of the film, which I think, again, it's brilliant and gut punching. Punch gut.
Yeah.
I can never say it right.
I didn't get that sort of reaction from it. I do think it was like a really clever moment, just basically make her like unintentionally super racist towards Nick and all the predators and all that.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And I was like, I was immediately drawing real life parallels with essentially how Muslim people are seeing right now, with the fear for ISIS, and we tend to basically treat Muslims all in the same group as ISIS.
Yeah.
Following Donald Trump's mentality, which is at a very significant risk to overtake your neighboring nation.
Yeah, it's not my nation.
Yes, but here's the problem. This is a lesson that the entire world has learned since the Bush elections. When Bush was elected, the entire world suffered for it. And we're still suffering for it right now, because ISIS is a direct consequence of the mess that was made in the Middle East by the American government. We're still suffering. Now more than ever, the consequences of the Bush administration's actions. So what the hell is going to happen if Donald Trump wins? Of course, the entire world it's basically holding its breath to see if these godforsaken elections of your neighboring country will end up, well or not. Because honestly, the fact that Donald Trump is in the position he is now is not giving much hope for the whole of humanity, specifically for the American population, really.
Yeah, really, it's just really sad.
Anyway, back to the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, that's a big segue.
Honestly, okay, if the film would have left it at that, with the ambiguity in which we don't have any notion of safe security if the predators were acting like that because it was biological, they were biologically inclined, or something else was the reason for that. If we would have left it at that, ambiguously, honestly, I think it would have given the wrong message.
Yeah,
I think it
I
would have.
agree.
But the fact that the responsible factor for this behavior in the predators was a completely outside interference, a completely outside action that determined their reactions, speaks volumes about what essentially is society treating and doing to minorities.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the MacGuffin used to incite the aggressive behavior to the predators was a form of drug, to me, I interpret it as society being a drug in its own right, a drug that we are addicted to, with this vicious cycle of prejudice creating more prejudice, which creates more prejudice, which is fueled by those in a position of power.
Mm-hmm.
And hence we have the villain of the story, which turns out to be
a lamb.
A sheep.
Little cute.
A sheep.
Yeah.
Sheep.
Sheep.
She's an adult, so it's a sheep.
Yeah, whatever. Cute little sheep lamb, the most adorable little thing that just hates all predators and just wants to basically put them all into.
Now, essentially,
I'm trying to think of the right words, but I don't really know.
Not really that. I mean, her hatred. I mean, it's established that her hatred for the predators is more of an excuse. But what she really wants is political power, and she's willing to create fear and prejudice in order to maintain that political power. And that's clever because that's basically what politicians have been doing since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
And she's a monster created specifically by this society. A society that, once again, is the cause and effect of its own problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think Bellwether is a genius villain from a thematic standpoint and in relations to the overarching theme of Zootopia.
Yeah, I agree. Thematically, Zootopia is a fantastic movie.
It's also a very, very gorgeous looking film.
Yeah.
And the characters are fun to follow, and that's a good thing, because if the two main characters did not have such a great chemistry with one another, it wouldn't be as fun to watch throughout.
Yeah.
So, do you ship Nick with Judy?
Yeah. Yep, of course. I don't ship them. I don't care for shipping and all that. But I do think that Nick, at the beginning of the movie, was just kind of your archetypical sort of like sly con man sort of thing, which was just kind of dull to me. He did have some clever chemistry with Judy and all that. It was until the moment where we actually saw his background, where Prey treated him badly and put a muzzle on him, that he finally was able to flesh out as more of a character.
Yes, yes. Another thing that I point out in my review is that basically Judy and Nick are basically the film's thematic bearers of the themes of gender inequality.
Yeah.
With Judy feeling like she has to constantly prove herself, and she's also a bit self-entitled, like some would say certain feminists are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Which is their greatest flaw. And on the other hand, we have Nick, which basically suffered from plain old racism. Is a bearer for plain old racism, and is basically reacting to that by becoming exactly what everyone else foxes are.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he felt like he had no other choice but to become that.
Yeah.
And
He,
his
he
arc,
basically says that in the movie.
Yes, basically. Yeah, it's well. I have to say, I like the fact that this film does eventually openly address its themes, but unlike other films, other say less intelligent films, it doesn't really beat you over the head with its messages. Well, for the most part.
Yeah.
There is that one monologue in the ending, but other than that, it's pretty a-okay.
Yeah. It's the Disney sort of ending monologue. They usually go over the head with it. Just to basically
Well,
get that
it's
heartwarming feeling.
yeah. Well, it's not a completely dumb monologue. I mean,
Yeah.
it at least it acknowledges that we still have problems that are yet to be resolved, and taking out the big villain of the story does not repair a fundamental problem that's intrinsic in our society. And also, you have a cat there.
Yeah, I know. She just jumped on my lap. I'm a
Great.
furry after all. I need animals. Get out of here, cat.
Please don't say that. Don't say that. It sounds.
I already said it.
It sounds
It's out
wrong.
there. It's out there in the zeitgeist.
Thank you. The zeitgeist. Oh yeah, in the zeitgeist of internet culture.
Yeah.
I have a cat because I'm a furry. WhyBoy
No.
2016.
Yes, it'll be the greatest quote. Cat, get out of here. You're not stepping on my computer. I need to talk about the mystery aspect because thematically, yes, Zootopia is a great movie. I just felt like narratively there were some fumbling points. God damn it.
Well, to me the most noticeable fumbling point is what we already pointed out, which is goddamn cat interrupting the podcast. I can
No.
see his fur is practically in my mouth.
Get out of here.
I already pointed out the thematic plot hole of the weasel guy, and it's
Yeah, the weasel guy. And also, I just didn't understand how, like, the driver could have said anything of substance to Judy or Nick, because the otter didn't really say anything to the driver instead of just night howlers. Oh, because
Well-
we didn't
well-
get any clues from the otter. Like, we didn't get any clues, like anything from his
Well, to be
something
fair-
in the let me something like what I would have really like written into the movie was basically like something had happened to the otter's like plant shop. Like maybe after he disappeared, like it got rummaged and like all the night howler seeds got stolen. Something like that. Something that would like directly link that night howlers were plants sort of thing. Because I had no idea what night howlers were. That they were plants.
Well, to be fair, the jaguar, which is a panther.
Panther.
The panther was the driver for a mafia boss, and the police just showed up at his door. I think he would be on his guard the whole time, especially after the traumatic experience.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
justifiable in a way.
Yeah, I'm not questioning like the paranoia of it. I'm more questioning like what he actually knows, sort of thing. Like if it would
Well, gets
actually
shot
like
in
be
the
the
neck
key
and-
clue. Yeah, like will actually be the key clue to the whole thing. Where like what if he actually said something to Judy or Nick? What of substance would he actually have said?
Well, he didn't make it in time, obviously.
No, I'm saying in a hypothetical sort of situation. What would he have actually said that would have solved the complete mystery?
Oh, well, night howlers are flowers.
How would he have known that they were flowers?
So you're questioning how would he know about night howlers to begin with?
Yeah, how would he... Like, he did pick up the otter, but the otter was like, oh, I gotta go tell the boss and all that sort of thing. I'm scared that someone might be out for my life, which I really didn't understand that as well. But yeah, how did the driver actually know that what night howlers were? And the otter just basically said, like, oh, I'm here to tell the boss about the night howlers.
Good point.
That
This whole
was the-
night howler thing is a bit unclear on certain parts, but honestly, I've seen it twice. I was having too much fun with it.
Yeah.
I did not bother me in the slightest.
Yeah.
And that's I had to say that's probably the key difference between this and something like Zootopia, for example. Okay. I actually want to use this as a segue to talk briefly again about Zoophobia, which is the comic we reviewed, and I had to apologize if I sounded a bit harsh on it, But this is where I was coming from. I was not invested in the story, and the premise seemed confusing to me, and confused and unfocused, and several other aspects. So, for a variety of reasons, I was not able to get invested in the story. And because I was not invested in the story, I was bothered by every little thing about it.
Yeah.
And so, hence, I started to nitpick. With Zootopia, on the other hand, I was so invested in everything since minute one that honestly, I did not even bother to nitpick any of possible plot points.
Oh, thanks for calling my points nitpicks. That's really nice of you.
Well,
But
no,
yeah,
you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I totally get what you mean. The sort of investment of it was able to basically glaze over sort of things, which I totally understand. I can totally understand why everyone would have like missed this sort of point. Like it took me a while to figure this out. It's like, hey, wait a minute, how would he have known about the flowers?
As for me, I was too focused by its thematic brilliance and the way it portrays all of that through its visual allegoric storytelling, and that honestly, that to me, that aspect here, even though it's a bit of a plot hole, does not bother me because it's effectively a means to get to the really good stuff.
Yeah. I just felt like there was actually like other ways that they could have gone about it, like just like show a picture of the otter's place being ransacked, sort of thing, stealing all the seeds. Something that would have connected like the actual seeds to the otter and all that, because there was a scene where the pig got stuff stolen by the weasel, but we didn't know anything about the otter.
Also, another thing that I like about this film is, well, the use they make of animals, specifically for visual puns and animal-based gags, and also to connecting again to the theme, overarching theme of the story, how this film basically challenges some specific perception of how specific animals are usually portrayed to be, or what they represent in terms of human behavior. For example, again, the villain, Bellwether, which was the assistant mayor, and she conspired everything, basically.
Yep.
She's a sheep, right? Sheep are usually associated with following the herd.
Yeah.
Like, sheep are seen as fearful creatures that follow the herd. This sheep, not only she is the one who controlled the herd, but she's also the one who created fear to be spread in the herd. Or at least that was her plan.
Yeah.
Actually, the ironic part of it is that the mayor Lionheart, as corrupted as he was, as eager as he was to defend his own position, he was the one who was actually actively, unknowingly, opposing her by having all the predators captured and disappear mysteriously, because he didn't want the populace to find out, which is the kind of failed government cover-ups you would expect to happen nowadays, the kind that gets all too easily discovered. Because you can never hope to hide anything for so long in today's modern day information-based society. Honestly, conspiracy theories are nothing but conspiracy theories, and when everything eventually comes up in the light, and careers are ruined, so to speak.
Yeah. Bellwether is a very interesting sort of villain from a thematic standpoint. Like as I just said, the only stumbling bit was just part of the mystery, because I felt like that was a key clue in the mystery that we should have been like much more clear than it should have been.
Well, I think it's clear by the second half of the film that the mystery itself takes a second important spot compared to what really is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's why it didn't really bother me. It's not like, oh god, the mystery is ruined. Like that. Yeah, no, Zootopia for anyone. It was just like, I can go along with the theme of it.
The theme is great. Again, Okay, so I want your opinion as a furry about this because I think we need to. I think we need to address. No. Nothing too offensive. Bear with me. Bear with me. Get it?
Yeah, I get it. What's your question to me as the spokesperson for all furries everywhere?
Well, you're the only furry I know, so you will have to excuse me.
Okay,
But I take advantage of your existence right now.
sounds good.
So, Gazelle. Yay
No.
or nay?
It doesn't do anything for me.
Okay. No, but okay. So, do you think that this Disney film was actually proactively, openly trying to entace the specific furry demographic with some of its?
Definitely. Like I showed in like my review, there was a email uncovered by BuzzFeed that was basically like Disney executives contacting like this furry convention, basically saying like, "Come and see Zootopia! Everyone come and see it."
Oh, leave it to Disney to find new demographics, or in this case, old demographics to acknowledge and cater to.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Disney. You know, Disney over the last few decades has become an all-encompassing company that really covers all bases and produces something for all demographics. I mean, it's clear ever since they become owner of Pixar and Marvel that they. What are you doing?
It's putting it down because I saw a lot of headroom above me.
That they really want to be able to exploit monetarily every possible demographics and even every possible social groups if they have the chance. So, good job on their part. Being progressive for the sake of money is still better than not being progressive at all.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, because they will get plenty of money from it, and from all the free advertising of like all the furry artists all complaining a few months back about.
And yet,
yeah,
and yet they will take down your review of Zootopia if it's on YouTube because hypocrisy.
yep, they haven't taken it down yet because I know the ins and outs of the content ID system. So
Yeah, you know, it doesn't really matter what you know because YouTube is so broken up right now that it will just randomly block your video because it's been claimed by the Jeff, the homeless person living in the slums.
yeah, very true.
Uh,
But no claims yet. So yeah.
And that's why when I made an audio version of my written review of Zootopia, it's basically one image that was basically a very edited, personalized thumbnail to begin with. So you really shouldn't run any risk at all.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Well, I hope so. And I mean, YouTube is so broken it could actually copyright infringe a highly edited, personalized single picture, honestly. Anyway, so this is being our review of Zootopia, the story of an assistant teacher going to a school full of anthropomorphic animals and learning not to be afraid of them.
Wait a minute, I think that's Zootopia.
Oh right, sorry. So Zootopia, the story of Ben Stiller playing as a model, even though he's too old for that.
I don't think I know that movie.
No, wait, no, that's Zoolander.
Yeah.
Too many
Zootopia.
zoos.
Yeah,
Too many
Zootopia.
zoos.
Yeah.
Too many zoos. Too many zoos. Also, doesn't help. It doesn't help that it's known as Zootropolis in Italy. So that's too many zoos all at the same time.
Okay, Zootopia, the story of the small little bunny going to the big city to solve a big case, but being like stopped by racism, and that's the story.
Sexism, racism, classism, and everything else that comes with them.
Yeah.
It's a
All the
lot of
isms.
stuff. All of the isms, all of them. Great film, but you already know that, and you probably already watched it, and it's worth talking about, definitely. And I wonder if by the end of the year I'm going to be sick and tired of hearing about it, like Frozen. Well, to be fair, unlike Frozen, I think Zootopia is actually a masterpiece, while Frozen is merely okay.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
It's okay. Let it go! Let it go! I can't take these horns anymore!
I think you need to let that go.
No, I think I need to let that goat. Because that's the animal pun. Animal puns everywhere. Animal puns the movie.
Get out of here with your animal puns. I'll go talk with Shakira Antelope and her 4 dancing buff tigers.
What kind of animal pun can you make with the name Shakira? That's...
Antelope.
That's okay. That's your homework for the next time. Find clever animal puns to do with the name Shakira. It's very difficult, I know, but okay. So, in conclusion, what did I think? What did we think about Zootopia?
Good movie. Very good movie. Yep, he agrees with me. Good movie. Or, as he said, a masterpiece movie. Which has a great style to it, great theming. The mystery has a fumbling point in it, but it's all good, and stop that immediately.
Also, okay, DMV scene, funniest thing ever to me.
DMV scene, most horrible thing ever.
No, that's the nudist part. That's the nudist part.
That was just the oddest thing ever.
Not really. That I knew it was coming by the trailers. Anyway,
I avoided that in the trailers. I was like, oh, nudist theme in a kids movie where none of the animals are technically naked. They don't have penises for that.
So there was that panther that was licking his leg, and that was that was about that was that I think I'm surprised I am not seeing that posted everywhere on Tumblr.
Yeah, people are more interested in the fox in Nick and Judy saying "I love you" to each other at the very end.
They don't really say that, do they?
Oh, well, Judy says, "Oh yeah, I love you," in a completely platonic way, but nobody cares about platonic.
Yeah, okay, I like this. This is the post-Frozen Disney progressive attitude, in which the 2 main leads, female and male, they don't necessarily need to end up together. I mean, it's something that might happen down the line somewhere once the story is finished, you know, in fanfictions maybe. But in the context of the film, it doesn't really need to happen because the film is not about that.
Yeah, it's about the isms. All the isms.
It's about the dickisms.
The furryisms.
Well, it's definitely it definitely has a lot of furryisms. That's for sure. Okay. This has been Madhog Die. This has been Mad Porcupine Die Master.
And it's been WhyBoy with the spirit of the mighty monkey inside of me.
I cannot think of any clever animal pun right now because to end this with, other than the bare necessity thing. There was this post on Tumblr in which they depicted Judy cosplaying as Furiosa from the Mad Max Fury Road film. You'll never guess what her name was in that picture. You'll never ever guess it.
Oh, I don't know. Why don't you just tell us? Because I'm so stupid, I don't know.
Furiosa! God damn it. Oh, yeah, I know. It's the death of comedy. That's funny because I actually came up with a joke like that for the title my currently discontinued Sam and Max Hit the Road Let's Play series. There was an episode that I called Mad Max Furry Road, because one of the protagonists is called Max. And there is a mini game in which Max is on the top of the DeSoto's car, trying to jump all the incoming highway signs.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. In its context, it is.
Yeah.
So Zootopia, I mean Zoolander, I mean Zootropolis, that thing.
Yeah.
We like it.
Zootopia.
Zootopia, it's great. So it's possibly becoming the new Undertale in terms of exposure, and it might actually swear people off because of that. But just like Undertale, it deserves all the praise, in my opinion.
Yep. Yep, I think it deserves all the praise. I don't really like all the exposure it gets, because as soon as something gets overexposure, you start to get sick of it, just like with Frozen, sometimes with Undertale, even though I still like Undertale.
Well, yes, okay. It's difficult to separate the product itself from all the hype and the fandom surrounding it, but it can be done. Undertale is still great in its own right. Just avoid the fans, generally speaking. Just like Zootopia is great, just avoid this furry guy here and all of his friends.
You bastard. Don't avoid me.
No, I wouldn't. You're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. You're so furry. You're so furry. You're so furry. You're so furry. You blow my mind.
I'm furry. Yes, I'm furry.
Okay, so you need to advertise that here. You need to wear a T-shirt that says "I'm furry. I'm a furry." You need to go around wearing a cat-eared headband. you need to advertise it more. Otherwise, people cannot tell immediately you're furry.
Well, I don't. Why do I want to advertise it? It's just being a furry. It's just like being a My Little Pony fan. It's just a thing you do. It's not something like, yes, My Little Pony. It is everything that I am.
And that's why I despise labels. And honestly, by the looks of it, you're already wearing a headband, even though I know for a fact it's your headphones. But anyway, so this was our mega podcast, mega analytical, dissecting, deconstructing podcast about Bunnicula and, oddly enough, Zootopia sharing the same spotlight, which is as weird as it sounds.
Yep, very weird. At least we ended on something good.
Well, unless you, I don't know, unless you want to talk about the Teen Titans Go.
Oh, oddly enough, I don't watch crap. So can't talk about that.
Okay. Okay, bye now. On that high note, on that mind-blowing note, see you next time.
See ya.
I am now going to slowly but decisively interrupt this recording.
The dog tells you to stop.
Wait, before that, shut up, dog. Before that, I'm just going to leave you. I'm just going to leave you.
Immediately when you're trying to talk.
I'm just going to leave you with a very special surprise and treat for all of you. I'm going to leave you with my audio recorded review of Zootopia, except slow down, extremely slow down, as if I were a sloth reviewing the film.
Can we not?
Yes, we will. I'm going to edit this thing, so I'm going to leave it there. So watch it, skip it, whatever, it's up to you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bum,
Zootopia is the most socially and politically involved Disney animated feature to date. It goes up and beyond the predictable mockery of archetypical human behaviors associated with specific animals for the sake of admittedly really funny jokes, and it also far surpasses the clever but thematically self-limiting subversion of expectations when it comes to said behaviors applied to said animal characters. Which is to say, it's a move that could have made for a simple moral of don't judge a book by its cover, but instead gets to be deeply ingrained in a much more complex, relevant issue that the film tackles with refreshing, poignant brutality. What I find absolutely astounding, especially for an established, culturally defining mainstream company such as Disney, is that they managed to deliver a lambasting, unapologetic, no-holds-barred commentary about prejudice in modern society under the guise of a family cartoon starring anthropomorphic characters. In fact, I would be more inclined to say the use of humanized animals in such an Orwellian, allegoric fashion is the reason why the critique is so powerful and on point to begin with. Their interpretation of all the many problems that characterize our day-to-day reality in a metaphorical format such as this allows for a level of perspective and long-lasting impression that a more straightforward apologue usually does not provide. For example, it's one thing for a film to state that women and minorities are ostracized because of their gender/misguided reputation, but it's another thing altogether for a film to establish a connection between the social ostracization of women and minorities and the way rabbits and foxes are generally treated based on well-known stereotypes attached to them. Namely, rabbits are considered small and weak, while foxes are considered sleazy and not to be trusted. It doesn't stop there though, with the two main characters serving as the metaphorical bearers of the themes of gender inequality and plain old racism. The film takes us on a journey that both unravels and deconstructs down to the core every possible issue, from classism to racial supremacy, from political scare tactics to the role played by the government and the media in the mistreatment of specific social groups. By the time we get to the second half, the diegesis had already made an eerie but very specific allusion to certain choice words reserved for certain types of people by certain public figures. And I'll just leave it at that for now. In the end, what Zootopia is really about isn't just a broad criticism on racism, sexism, and the role they play in Western civilization. It's actually much more scary and powerful implication than that. Prejudice and the persecution attached to it are not merely a defining aspect of society. Our prejudiced society is both the cause and effect of itself. It's the result of a constantly repeated vicious cycle throughout history, in which the actions of the few with power determine the livelihood of the many, and the reactions of the many determine the behavior of the ostracized few, which in turn fuels the self-righteousness of the powerful few, with the many following right after. It's the kind of atavist problem that cannot be solved by a Disney-style happy ending. And even though the absolutely brilliant antagonist is stopped, the crisis gets resolved and our heroes celebrate their hard-earned victory at the end. The film is smart enough to acknowledge that that's not going to fix what's fundamentally wrong with the world. Instead, it chooses to leave us with a hopeful, try everything and be whatever you want to be message, implying that the change we need has to come from you. Zootopia is a masterpiece, a brutally effective Orwellian allegory, a thematic juggernaut conveyed through a solid, engaging, and fun narrative that doesn't beat you over the head with its message, a political and social statement that displays the kind of radical anti-establishment mannerism you simply don't expect to see from the Mouse Company, of all places, and it's also the best effort from the Disney Animation Studios since Wreck-It Ralph. Go watch it as many times as you can. Roll